All right. All right. It's a little technical difficulty, but we're here. We're in here. I'm going to go turn on the Instagram live. We're going to do this. We're doing it. All right. We're in here. We got the double. We got the double live going. Let's go. Let's go. There's one person here in YouTube. We're waiting for more. Oh, let's go. Are we even on Wi-Fi? Man, where's the fucking Wi-Fi? Okay. All right. People are in here. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. We got the questions. We're in here. Okay. We got the questions. That's right. I had to print it out. Welcome to WGGN News. Okay? With Shim. We're in here. Gonna get to all of your questions. If you have more questions and you want to be greedy, needy, give to the needy, you can post them here or you can post them here. I'm going to be looking at both screens. Excuse my chair. Let's go. Who we got in here? Legend of _RL. I've never heard of your legend, but I'm happy that you're here. Hopefully, if you ask the question, you're in here. I'm not going to be saving this live on Instagram, but I will be saving it here for YouTube. So, The Shim Show on YouTube, if you don't already know. Shimmy93 on Instagram, if you don't already know. Oh, this is fucking great. Oh, this is so good. Okay. I don't even know where to begin. We got a fair bit of questions. We'll give it another minute. If you guys are here on Instagram Live, let me know that you're ready for this because I'm ready for this. And if you're here on YouTube, let me know that you're ready for this because I'm ready for this. This is very fun. This is very, very fun. Just came back from training. I had a lot of traffic, so I had to move fast. Had to eat. I told you, I got my Crush Zero Sugar, one of the best diet sodas that there is. That's it. That's right, Shashank. You know what? You said here for your wisdom, and you asked the question. So guess flipping what? We're going to do your question first, okay? Because that's how we work. Participation trophies. Okay, let's go. Let's bang. Shashank _Suvarna asks, my arms are the least respondent muscle. Any tips, high frequency or high intensity? Great question, a question that a lot of people have. The biggest thing that I can tell you, before we worry about the frequency or the intensity, the first thing we need to worry about is technical mastery. Is the technique pristine? Is it flawless? Is it amazing? If the technique is amazing with what you're doing, then we can go into exercise selection, right? These two, to me, primary importance. Then after those two, then we talk about effort. And only after those three checkboxes are mega checkboxed can we then worry about the frequency, the rep range, things of that nature. So number one, is the technique fantastic? Number two, are the exercises that we're choosing good? And number three, is the effort that we are putting out there to do said movements appropriate and good? And only after those three things do we then want to worry about frequency, how often we're training a muscle, and rep ranges and progression and protocol, those sorts of things. But that being said, if your arms are slow to respond, then you'd probably be better off with a slightly higher frequency, and especially make sure you're training them in the appropriate rep ranges. So none of this 5 to 8 or 6 to 10 BS for most people. And chances are, if you're asking if your arms are laggards, then they're probably not so fast twitch. So that would apply to you. So mostly sets of 10 to 15, sets of 15 to 20, 15 to 25 would be most appropriate. And I would say train them at least twice a week. 3 times a week might even be a good idea. But I want to reiterate one more time. Technique, number one. Exercise selection, number two. Effort under the requisite of those two things needs to be top tier. And then we can worry about that. I hope that answers your question. Moving on, WGGN News with Shim answering all your questions. Vikash CS. Do you sometimes reduce your training to maintenance level when you feel burnt out? Amazing. Amazing question. Yes, you can. But what I would prefer is to take my training to maintenance before that even happens. So already go through these bouts of training to know how often it's going to take me to train tough before I have to burn out, right? Before I'm going to burn out. But yes, going to maintenance every couple of months to sort of cool the jets, refuel, and set up for the next leg of really hard training is a really important thing to do. And I think you should absolutely do it. Are there times where you're going to burn out in your training first before the maintenance happens? Yes, absolutely. But the less times that can happen, the better. And the more that you can sort of catch the maintenance phase before burnout occurs, of course, the better off that you'll be. But great question, and you should absolutely do that. And for those of you who are very highly motivated to train, who love training, and it's harder for you not to train than harder for you to sort of take a break, you should probably be doing a maintenance phase a bit more often than you currently are. Taking weeks off, taking light weeks. It's really, really important. It's not even one step back to 2 steps forward. It's just 1 step forward to fucking 18 steps more forward. So yes, it's a good idea. Next question. SidVDHOUT_. I'm just spelling the shit at this point because whatever. Pullovers, more of a lat exercise or chest tricep exercise? Lot of debate because of the leverages. I think both. I think it is more so a lat exercise, but something that a lot of people seem to forget is when you go through full range of motion back training, whether it be vertical pulling or horizontal pulling, again, full range of motion, the long head of the tricep is very much online. Believe it or not, that muscle group is being trained when you do that. When you shorten the range of motion, not so much. But when you really extend all the way up here or even on your rows, the long head of your tricep is absolutely coming to the party. And you probably know this if any of you ever film your training, especially if you ever film with a sleeveless shirt where you can see what your arm does. You ever notice that your tricep subtly flexes at the end range of a back movement? That's not by accident. That is telling you something. So the pullover is a great example of that. There is a significant stretch component going on in the long head of the tricep. So it is absolutely online. Now, as far as it being a chest movement, I'm not so sold on that. I don't think that is much of a chest grower, contrary to what Arnold Schwarzenegger would say. Does it train the serratus? Yeah. Is the serratus the rib cage under the chest? Yeah. So maybe it gives that illusion, but I treat it as a lat exercise with some residual, some collateral training to the long head of the tricep, if you will, for a pullover movement for anyone just joining the chat. Zalman Klein. Shabbat shalom to you. What's the best tip for trying to get lean, lose fat, but still maintaining muscle strength? Of course, there are infinite tips, right? So you're just asking for one tip and you're asking for essentially a tip off the top of my head. So the one tip that I can give you for trying to get lean, lose body fat, but still maintain muscle mass, make sure that you're lifting weights on a consistent basis. So many people, they will get really active. They may even do the calorie deficit and they won't really lift weights. So you need to lift weights. Yes, you're only in the gym for an hour or two a day, and that's the easy part of training for sure. But you still need to do it. You still need to provide that stimulus. So make sure that you're doing your steps. Make sure that you're in a calorie deficit, not too much of a deficit because you don't want to burn out, although because losing muscle is not really a thing if you're lifting weights and eating sufficient protein, but decent enough deficit, but make sure that you're consistently lifting weights. And if that was a Sally Sandbag answer, I can only answer with which questions I'm given. If you're asking me for one tip off the top of the dome ski, you better be lifting weights if you want to lose body fat and maintain muscle. Okay. Nathan Camus, X2. When you're training on a cut, do you take muscles from MEV to MRV or stay at MEV? Good question. Now, there's many roads to hoe here. You can start at the minimum effective volume that you currently believe you're at and go till essentially you can't go anymore from a volume standpoint, till you are hitting the max. amount of volume that you can recover from, then deload, repeat. I am a fan of having a stepwise approach from a volume standpoint when you're dieting, when you're massing, but when you're also dieting. However, I have changed my mind on this a bit, and I'm going to tell you how. I used to be so bullish, so aggressive with my volume accumulations week over week because maybe I drank the Kool-Aid a little bit too much with the Renaissance periodization homies, and they are homies of mine. It's good stuff. Going from MEV to MRV. Nowadays, I think that finding your minimum effective volume, so for those of you that are unfamiliar, essentially finding the amount of sets, reps, and load that allows you to train to get the smallest amount of gains, but to still get something, a little bit of pump, a little bit of soreness, a little bit of disruption, a little bit of fatigue. And then slowly add sets if you really, really want to. I'm not a fan of staying statically at MEV. So if I start at 10 sets of chest week 1, I'm not a fan of just staying at 10 sets of chest, even if I'm adding load. But I do think that you can be a little bit more, a little bit lazier. I don't know if that's the right language to use here, but a little bit lazier with your set additions week over week. Focus on adding load, matching performance from previous weeks, making sure your training sessions are not too long, and your adherence and your interest and your excitement to get to the gym is really, really high. And I think that can't be understated when you're dieting, because eventually the diet is going to whop smack you in the face at some point, right? The step count, the diet fatigue, the calorie deficit, depending on how lean you're getting, maybe the lack of sleep, it's going to hit you in the face. So I find if I let training be what I look forward to, right, every single day, and making sure that my volumes are good, but making sure that I'm not going to be in there for 2 hours or 2.5 hours having to do 25 sets in a workout. And I've been there, and I'm sure a lot of you have been there as well. So I think that staying at your minimum effective volume week over week is not the smartest thing. It's not horrible. It's not horrible, but it's not the smartest thing. But going all the way to MRV, the maximum recoverable volume, the most that you can possibly do and still recover where you don't get shat out the other side, you can. Quite frankly, I kind of save that more for when I'm massing and I'm in a calorie surplus. So I have the raw materials, if you will, to build that house larger. Otherwise, when I'm dieting, sort of play it as it lies, train as much as I can that I'm willing to do and nothing more than that. And when in doubt, when it comes to adding sets, adding volume, usually it's when in doubt, no, for me, when it comes to being in a hypocaloric environment dieting. I hope that helps. The mighty Josephus. Suggestions for if I want to transition over to strength training on a 3-day-a-week full body schedule right now. You can do that because strength training can innately bust up your joints, tendons, and ligaments. It can be quite fatiguing, especially with how much psych up you have involved. So I think you need to do a better job, and no disrespect, obviously. I think that you need to do a better job of defining what strength training really means to you, right? Like people will say, I'm going into a hypertrophy phase, a muscle gain phase. I'm going into a strength phase. Well, you need to give more than saying a strength phase, because what does that mean? I'm going to just pick random exercises to get good at for sets of 5 with no purpose. To say I'm in a hypertrophy phase, the purpose is I want to get more jacked. That doesn't need to be defined any more than that, unless you're advanced or you're stepping on stage, in which case you need to do a specialization phase. But this is actually something that I don't hear a lot of people mentioning very much. And I've thought about it a lot more, especially recently, for whatever reason, on the can when I'm taking a poop. This is when ideas come to mind. When people talk about a strength phase, like I'm going into a strength phase with no other context, just I'm in a strength phase for what, bro? Sis? Just cause? I'm trying to do sets of 5 on pull-ups? Well, okay, but tell me that, right? So respectfully, I think you need to give me a little bit more context than just saying I'm doing a strength phase. If you tell me for what, then I can more guide you in an appropriate direction. But just strength for strength, I don't know what strength is, right? Strength for what? Specific exercise, a sport, I don't know. Moving on. J Troy 07, the homie, Jeremy. Hams get pumped sore even from RIR 4 to 7. Any reason to go closer to failure? Such a good question. Such a good question. Believe it or not, I've actually gotten this question on DM from a couple of people where they'll be like, man, is something wrong with my hamstrings? Because I barely do anything and they get sore for days on end. And I'm like, man, You cracked the code. Imagine if every body part was hamstrings. Oh my gosh, it'd be great. Our training sessions would be like 40 minutes and we'd be jacked. So, no, man. I think when the getting is good, there's something to be said for let the getting be good. Don't run away from something that's working. Enjoy it, live in it. If I could get pumped, sore, disrupted from barely training hard, AKA 5 reps in reserve, maybe 60% of my best effort, why would I run away from that? Or at least why would I run far from that? I don't know. I mean, there's just really something to be said for if there are easy gains to get, then by golly, let's get them. You know? So, Jeremy, don't change in many ways, sir. Just keep doing what you're doing. Thomas Javal, as a Smith machine practitioner. That's funny. Can you dispel their supposed high risk of injury? Yeah, absolutely. I just don't see it. Where is the injury risk coming from? If someone would to give me an argument as to where the injury risk of is coming from, then maybe we can go at it. But otherwise, why would the Smith machine be any more injurious than anything else? I don't really follow. It's a linear bar path. It's locked in. You can rack the bar if something feels a little bit hairy. I don't see it. It's not jiving with me. So if somebody here in the comments would like to tell me why they think a Smith machine is more injurious than a regular machine, then we can duke it out. But otherwise, I'm not seeing it. Smith machine is fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, moving on. Oh, I love this. I really feel like I'm on a news station. I got my prompts here. I got my screens. Again, if you're just tuning in here, I'm live on YouTube as well. And if you're just tuning in here, I'm live here on Instagram at the same time. It's like the chocolate swirl at Carvel. If you haven't had soft serve Carvel recently, you're fucking up majorly. I had a cake cone chocolate vanilla soft serve the other day from Vel. Whoo! That's all I'm gonna say. 312K. How would you balance hypertrophy training with wanting to improve running pace? Good question. It really depends on where someone is starting from. Pun intended, running pace, starting. But I think the biggest thing is starting back. So peeling back and seeing where I can add volume and where I can't. So what I mean by that is, if you really want to improve your running, if that's something that's important to you right now, maybe bring your hypertrophy training, your muscle growth training to its minimum effective volume or maintenance volume for the time being. So you'll still be growing, but pretty much with just the smallest amount of effort that you need in order to elicit some kind of growth stimulus. And while you're doing that, raise your running volume. Raise your running volume while you keep your minimum. Wait. Sorry, the thumb just went up on there. That was dope. Raise your running volume and see how you handle that. See how you recover from that. And as you slowly raise your running volume, ultimately to its maximum recoverable volume, yes, now I believe it's appropriate to go there. Once you find that, you'll likely already know what your hypertrophy training maximum recoverable volume is because that's what you were doing for a while. Once you hit that, then deload and then start to add in a bit more volume from your hypertrophy training into your running. So the biggest thing is if you're trying to improve your running, I mean, it's in the name. If you're trying to improve your running, pull back on your weight training for a while and drive your running volume up and then slowly add the weight training volume back in. Train Smart 21. It's a bold name. It's a bold name. You better live up to that name. I'm kidding. You followed me for a while. I know you do. You're legit. When do you like to program flies before versus after pressing movements? Context, as you probably knew I was going to say, context matters. So I would say for majority of trainees, starting with presses and then succeeding that movement with flies in a moderate rep range is the most fruitful experience. Insert whatever exercise variations for the press and the fly that you'd wish. But for most people, especially beginners, intermediates who are not that strong yet, leading with the press would be a really good idea. Then when you're more advanced and you are strong enough where the loads that you're going to be using for you are pretty disruptive, take a lot of time to do, maybe have a slightly higher injury risk, are as such, when you start with pressing, then pre-exhausting with flies might be a good idea. That's option number one. That's the obvious one, right? When you're too strong for presses, do flies first. Simple, stupid. Secondly, if you've been doing presses first for a long time and then have gone on to flies, and you're still in a phase of hard training, you can then flip-flop them to preserve future exercise variation, get more out of less load on the press, still generate a significant mind-muscle connection, stretch, tension, disruption. And it works. And it works for weeks. It works for months. Transparently, that's what I do. I'm not the strongest presser in the world. I'm not a weak presser, but I'm not pressing 315 for 10 or something like that. So I spend most of my time doing presses first in the 6 to 10 or 8 to 12 rep range, whether it be dumbbells, Smith, cambered bar, or whatever. Then I'll do flies. After doing that for a few months, of course, I can't press heavy anymore. My elbows don't like it, joints don't like it. Mentally, I don't want to do it anymore. So then I might flip-flop and I might do flies first in the 8 to 12, the 10 to 15 rep range, something like that, and then go on to presses, and then even go on to the press that I was already using for the last few months. So I can still sort of rinse that exercise variation rag out as much as I possibly can with that movement, take my deload, my maintenance or whatever, and then be fresh to a brand new pressing variation. And this is a strategy that I self-servingly think is very good because I do it and I do it with plenty of people as well. Fresh Prince of Miami, preguntas y respuestas. Así. I didn't think of the respuestas at the time that I was posting that video because I said preguntas and Spanish for answers. Yeah. Would you guys believe, by the way, I live in South Florida. My dad is actually from South America. Real shit. Not even kidding. And I don't speak Spanish. I know. It's sad. I speak Hebrew, but I don't speak Spanish. Yeah. Weird. Justin Coppola _ do you go back to maintenance calories during deload week? Yes. Yes, I do. Maintenance calories of whatever that current body weight is. So if you are in a massing block and you've just recently put on, let's say 5 or 6 pounds, granted it will be small, but if you've gained 5 or 6 pounds, you now have a new maintenance and it is slightly higher, maybe 100 calories more, 200 calories more than your previous maintenance phase was. Conversely, if you're dieting and let's say you're down 5 pounds since the last time you took a maintenance phase, well, now your maintenance calories are slightly less. So yes, I do. I go back to maintenance calories. During a massing phase, it is a nice reprieve from eating all that food and being in a calorie surplus. And when you're dieting, it is also a nice reprieve from being in a deficit because you get 100, 200 calories more than you've probably been getting, which is nice. 50 grams of carbs goes a long way. It does, believe it or not. Rochevos asks, best way to structure a weight loss diet with no tracking, or is it possible? Oh, it's absolutely possible. 100%. Yes. Now, I have a bias because I think tracking is great and I've tracked for a really long time. And what I'll say is, if you want to get really, really lean, leaner than you've ever been before, I think tracking is necessary. But if that's not you and you just want to lose some body fat, you want to lose 10 pounds, you want to lose 20 pounds or something, and you've never been shredded before, and that's not really what you're looking for, you can 100% just think of it in terms of big rocks, and you'll probably lose a fair bit of body fat in the process. So things like making your step count tantamount. I guess that's technically tracking, but that's not as hard as macros, right? So setting your step count, whatever it is, 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, whatever that is. Making sure that you're eating food at regular intervals throughout the day where it's most convenient for you. So on the margins, right? 2 meals a day, probably not good enough. 7 meals a day, probably a pain in the ass. So somewhere between 3 and 6, whatever makes the most sense for you. And if you want to narrow that down more, maybe like 4 to 5. Making sure that in each of those feeding windows, I love that phrase, feeding window. I feel like a goddamn reptile. I feel like I'm at the zoo. It's the feeding window for the basilisk, for the yellow anaconda. Making sure that you're having a sufficient amount of lean protein in each of those meals. So fist size is a pretty nice short form. Making sure that you're having fruits and veggies in most of those meals. Making sure that you're having a decent amount of healthier fats in some of, but not all of those meals, you can start with that and make sure that you're training, obviously, probably at least 3 times a week with weights. And that can take you decently far. And then you can make progressions more so. Instead of saying, I'm going to reduce 200 calories, you can say, okay, in this meal, I have 2 servings of fruit and a serving of pasta and some chicken, as an example. So if you're not losing weight, you keep everything the same and you go, I'm going to go from 1 serving of pasta to half a serving. Light, calm, bro, calm, easy. Moving on, Free Kang, your previous story, he's talking about my single leg press. What leg placement, if any, favors quads? So the billboard answer, right, is low foot placement on the platform, toe pointed slightly out, because that biases knee flexion. That gives you the most amount of knee flexion that you can generate. If we remove the billboard and we actually provide context in a real conversation, you do need to experiment and find what works for you, because everybody's anthropometry, the way that they're built, designed by God himself, is different. Some people may not be able to put their feet really low on the platform. It's just uncomfortable for them. Their heel comes up a lot. Who knows? Some people can generate a lot of pump soreness and disruption in their quads from having more of a middle stance. So you need to experiment. But I think it is a good start to start with your feet lower on the platform, toe pointed out, and then go from there and see how that goes. Andy Garcia, but with no N, and not in reference to the very famous actor who's been in those mob movies. Advice you'd give someone going through a breakup and has no drive or motivation. Okay, I have some advice for you. Now, I don't know if you've consumed much breakup content on social media, but a lot of people will say, get in the gym, work on your finances, work on your fashion. And all that stuff's probably fine. But to me, whether you're in a relationship or you're not, motherfucker, you better be working on that anyway, right? Like, we're going to be in the gym anyway. So if I broke up with someone and someone was like, you got to get in the gym, I'm already in the gym. I was in the gym when I was with them, and I'm going to be, that doesn't do shit for me. You know what I'm saying? And I would venture to say that a lot of you that are following me probably would be the same. If you broke up with someone and they're like, work on your fitness. I'm like, bro, I am. Right? Or like, work on your finances. What? I wasn't working before. I didn't have a job before. I had a job then, had to make money. Job now, have to make money. So that doesn't really help me. And then working on your fashion, I don't know if a lot of people really do that. I do. I think it's important. I would say the biggest thing is pick up a new hobby, and pick up a hobby that allows for social interaction. Some people will also say immerse yourself in a new community, new hobby. But if that hobby doesn't allow you to interact with new people and you're maybe more isolated, you're just going to be isolated thinking about that girl or that guy. So that doesn't really help you, does it? No, it doesn't help at all. So you need to pick some sort of hobby where there are people around, where there are new people that will take your mind off of it, that you can interact with, that you can foster and form new bonds, new relationships with. Goes without saying, obviously, if there's people of the opposite sex there, well, you can move on and maybe start hooking up with other people, and that can maybe help the process. Some people, although obviously Band-Aid, right? Like them healing from previous relationships by just hooking up with a ton of other people. I'm not suggesting that, but I am saying that if you have just broken up with someone, I think something that can be really helpful is go pick a new hobby where you can be social and you can meet new people, and you don't have to think about that person. You don't have to talk about that person. They don't even know that person. They don't even know you. And you can sort of create a whole new narrative. And I think that will really help. Give that a try. I really think that will help. That's helped me in the past. Dean_Bell 1995. Is 4 to 8 weekly working sets 0 to 1 RIR enough for hypertrophy? This question is coming around so much. Not in this form, but it's in another way. It's basically saying, bro, if I train a failure with low volumes, am I going to get jacked? Right? In so many ways, this is the way that you're asking the question. And the answer, you might. I think there are more efficient ways to go about it. I think that not training as close to failure and having more volumes is probably a better way because you're having more approaches to failure. You're having more mathematical, actual effective volume. Your injury risk is probably going to be lower because you don't have to psych up. You're not going to that place as often. And I think it's also just more enjoyable. And I think the research has pretty much shown that. And there is a bias maybe because of Mike Menser, a couple other people being like, man, you have to train to failure. Mike Israetel has talked about this a fair bit, but so have other people. It's not just him. But if you really do the knowledge on the most jacked people on the planet, they don't train to failure. And they train with a lot of volume. Yeah, okay, maybe the exercises are meh. Maybe the technique is meh. Maybe the exercise selection, okay, is meh. But there's got to be something actionable in that. And then when you think about people who are insane, like always going to failure, train super hard, I think there are way less of them that are really jacked, and then they also get fucked up and get injured. So I don't think that it's enough for sustained hypertrophy. Anything can work for a couple of months. But if you're going to tell me that you're doing that for years, and all you're doing when things get stale is just changing exercises or taking a week off, I think you can do better. I think you can do better. I think you can train with more volume. You don't have to go to a failure as often, and it will be a more fruitful experience. Going to failure is cool, and it does have a place. I can't argue that. But I think you're probably better off to not all the time. Most times not. Moving on. Lloyd _ Barcenilla. Any experience with BPC 157? Zero experience. Cash _ N. Were you born in London because your parents are British or because they were on vacation? I love this question. I saw it when you asked it, and I was like, this fucking shit's good. That's funny. No. I was born in London proper. My dad has a business in London, and so my family lived there for a while, and I was born there. And my brothers were born there. But I did move to South Florida when I was very, very young, hence why I have no accent and I'm totally Americanized. But no, I was proper born there. I have dual citizenship, the whole nine. Yes, indeed. Chloe L. Rue, how do you get depth on that Cybex leg press? Pad, ? So that Cybex leg press, he's referencing the small foot plate leg press that you've seen me on, if you've been looking much at my Instagram, is a fantastic leg press in itself. Now, some things that I do to generate significant depth in the end range, because my mobility, yeah, it might be above average, but it's not amazing. The reason why I'm able to hit the positions that I can hit is because of what I'm doing, steps that I'm taking to get there, not because my mobility is just unbelievable. So number one, I wear Olympic lifting shoes, man heels, if you will. They're about a 1/2 inch lift in there. That helps. Number two, I do put a pad behind my lower back. Number three, Grizzly Adams did have a beard. I put the seat back as far as I possibly can. That will allow for significant knee flexion and comfort on my hips. I point my toes out and I let my knees follow. Toes out, knees out is a very natural, comfortable position. So if a lot of you are pressing on hack squats, leg presses, or anything of the sort with your toes pointed straight ahead, knees going forward and saying, man, my heels are coming up. Why is that happening? I can't get that low. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Little modification. Put your toes out, put your knees out. I train with a moderate or narrow type stance, and I make sure that I control my eccentrics. And I guarantee you, if you employ all of those tips, tactics to your training, you will get lower on your leg movements than you've ever gotten before, and you will be shocked. And of course, the more you do it, the more your body learns. Neural learning is a thing, and the better you'll get at it, the more comfortable you'll get. I hope that helps. A.15HR, how to make money. I can't help you there. I can't help you there. Can't help you there. Back R Delon 7, tips for stubborn calves. Okay. Now, asterisk. My calves are nothing special. They're 16 inches. Okay. So take that for what it's worth. Now, do I think I know things about calf training? Yeah, I do. I think I do. I've helped people get bigger calves and fine. But just know my calves are not huge. So there you go. That being said, I think that biasing the stretch is really, really important. when it comes to calf training, making sure you're getting as low as possible, making sure that you're picking good calf training movements, movements that can be loaded, movements that are stable, and movements that don't yield foot pain. So in my experience, standing calf machines, leg press calf machines, and calf machines that I think you call them rotary calf machines. Those three, and donkey, those four I find to be big rocks. In addition to that, making sure that you're training them in moderate and higher rep ranges. So sets of 6 to 10 or 8 to 12 make zero sense to me when it comes to calf training. 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 15 to 25, even 30 if you got big testicles or a thick vagina. I can't get there. I never do more than 20, 25 reps for calves ever. You can also experiment with shorter rest periods. Calves do seem to respond from that. They get a really, really big pump. So anywhere from 10 to 30-second rest periods is cool. Making sure your frequency with them is quite high. So I would say start with 2 times a week, and that will quickly go up to 3. That might even go up to 4. It might even go up to 5. And I think being bullish as well with your load increases week over week, so long as you're able to maintain technique, is really good. I think you can add sets when you have the time, effort, will to add sets. Although I do think, and if Mr. Madra, you're still here, this will be music to your ears. I do think that adding tons of sets to calves, in my experience, has never actually been so fruitful. Once you've hit a logical, normal amount of calf training in a week, I mean, obviously this is completely subjective and arbitrary. I'm literally pulling this number out of my tushy hole, but it's just me. So I'm going to say if you're doing anything more than 15 to 20 sets of calves a week, I really have never seen anyone going from 20 to 25 or 30 to really do anything special to their calves. But what I have seen is people doubling down on their technique, doubling down on their effort, pushing those sets maybe even closer to failure, dare I say, or adding some intensity techniques, have really been fruitful experiences for improving people's calves. But on the margins, really high sets of calf training, even though the research may disagree with me here, I have not seen that to be fruitful. That's just me. I hope that helps. BBB_Ben96, how to make workouts more fun? Good question. There's many ways here. And obviously I don't know you, so this is very much person dependent. So I'm just going to rattle off some shit. Okay. Number 1, train with music that you like. Number 2, train with friends or training partners that are fun to be around, but are also serious. That's not that easy. I understand that. But if you can find it, that's really good. Number 3, maybe you're training with too much volume. Your gym sessions are too long. Reduce those. Pull the volume back. Maybe train a bit farther away from failure. Training to failure is hard. It's demoralizing. It's mentally, physically taxing. And if you do it for long enough, it can make you hate the whole training process. I've been there. I know what that's like. Simply pulling the reins on that horse a little bit and going from training to failure or 1 in reserve to now going maybe 3 to 5 reps in reserve, it's still stimulative. It's still high quality training. You're still going to grow, but it's just not, frankly, as hard. And that might be more fun. Some more tips. Maybe the gym environment that you train at sucks balls. Maybe it's just a boring place. Maybe the eye candy's not so good, if that's something that you're into. Switch gyms. See how that goes. Or maybe you've been training at the same gym for a long time. This is something that I actually tell a lot of people, a lot of my friends too. If they've been training at the same gym for a while, even if the gym is amazing, the same 4 walls get old and lame. Sometimes you just want to go to a different place. So that can help, switching gyms. And then, of course, the biggest one, maybe you just need some time off. If there was a time that you loved training, you loved it, you look forward to it, it was the mark of your day, and now you hate it, that's not by accident. There's data to be taken and analyzed from that. And to me, that means you just need some time off. And that's valid. And that's okay. Take a week, take a few weeks, take a month, and see how you feel. BBB, I hope that BBB helps. Last question from here, and then we're going to go to the live. Nathan Kamu2 asks something else. In a full body emphasis program, is RSM or SFR more important for exercise selection? So RSM stands for raw stimulus magnitude. Basically, how hard overall something is, irrespective of fatigue. And SFR stands for stimulus to fatigue ratio. So this one takes fatigue into account. How stimulative, how good something is relative to how much fatigue it gives you to get that stimulus. So is RSM or SFR more important for exercise selection? I think it really depends on your training age. Because if you are a beginner, raw stimulus magnitude movements are a really, really good idea. You're not training that much. You have all of the recovery capability in the world. Your eyes are exceedingly wide to the training process. You want to go. You're trying to beat, right? So for that demo, raw stimulus magnitude would be important. But after a couple of years of training, SFR rules the roost. Stimulus to fatigue ratio is the most important. You want to pick the movements that are as stimulative as can be without as much unnecessary fatigue to get that stimulus. First few years, deficit deadlifts make so much sense. Standing barbell presses make so much sense. High bar squatting makes so much sense, free weight. As you get bigger, as you get stronger, as your volume tolerance increases, so you're able to do more, the raw stimulus magnitude of those things grow, but how fatiguing those things are to accomplish the required stimulus also significantly magnifies. So at that point, you might want to shift over to pre-exhausting. You might alter your technique on these things, or you might just sub these movements out for something less fatiguing and more stimulating entirely. So I think when you're a beginner, movements that are whole body stimulative, I hate that fucking nomenclature. Whole body, it trains your whole body, but I guess I just used it. Whatever, I'll be better. I won't use that again. I don't like it. Movements that are just overall stimulative are important. But after a couple of years, you want to move on to movements that have the highest SFR for you. All right. Those were all of the questions that I got here. So now let's go to the Instagram Live. I don't think that I have any questions here in the YouTube chat. By the way, if any of you are not following me on YouTube, The Shim Show, THESHIMSHOW, one word. What are you doing? What's your deal? Get over there. And vice versa. If any of you guys, YouTubes, you're not there, Shimmy 93, SHI NY 93 on the gram. What? Do it. All right. Let's go. Just subscribe. You damn right you did, Shashank. You damn right you did. Okay. Come here. Come here, you. All right. Damn. There's a lot of people in here. Or at least there was. Okay. Oscar MD 29. El hombre de la técnica perfecta es en vivo, RN. Which means bro has the best technique in the world right now. I got that. I'm a big fan. I am from Spain. I am a decent sized man. I am from London. Who else we got? Xcalix 0. You didn't mention sequencing. You could train arms first. You could also have a dedicated arm day depending on experience level. You're absolutely right. You can. However, I think, for what it's worth, I think that the things that I mentioned are a bit more important than sequencing. Sequencing is important, but I would prefer perfect technique, great exercises, and great effort. And then I would worry about sequencing, frequency, volumes, rep ranges, these kinds of things. Who else we got? Shashank, you're welcome. Billiam, Stream Circle, how are you? Shashank, I had a follow-up question to exercise selection if you have the time. Well, you're in luck, Chuck, because I got the time. Is it preferred to choose cable exercises over free weights as it maintains constant tension throughout the stretch? No. It is not black and white. It is gray. The suit is black, but it is not gray. Sometimes it makes sense to use cables. Sometimes it makes sense to use free weights. You have to experiment with both. That being said, I think more time will be productively spent doing free weight type variations and sprinkling in the cable stuff along the way. and spending most of your time doing cable stuff probably will not be the most fruitful experience from a muscle growth standpoint. That's just my 2 cents. Cables are important, especially in moderate and high rep ranges, but free weights are also important. And I would lean more towards free weights in many cases, but that's the beauty of it. I don't got to choose, and neither do you. I can have both. I can have my cake and eat it too. So both. More free weights than cables, but both, and try all and see what works for you. Just chill 103. Macros on rest days. Should they be similar to macros on workout days or different? This is so funny. I think no matter what, to the end of time, I'm going to get this question. I've been getting this question for years, and I'm sure every fitness person does. No disrespect. Just funny. It's such a common question. I like to keep my macros the same. Whether I'm dieting or whether I'm in a weight gain phase, I like to keep my macros the same as whatever my current phase of nutrition is on my rest days. Here's the rationale. If I'm in a weight gain phase and I have a rest day where I'm not training and I stay in that calorie surplus, I can make the case that that extra bolus of food will speed up my recovery, will relax me more during the day, and it will further set me up for the next days of high quality training. Again, when I'm dieting as well, keeping my calorie deficit calories when I'm in maintenance allows less overall noise. And even though I'm not training, but I'm keeping the same as my training calories, that also ends up being kind of a bit more food, right? Than if I was on maintenance of my lower body weight. So that's cool. That might set me up for better quality training as well. And again, it's just one less thing to worry about, you know, like the up down of an extra 200-300 calories from maintenance calories to either surplus or deficit on a rest day is just not something that I want to mess with. I don't think that I think that's mental masturbation, if you will. I think I'm going to get to the same place, and this is just more convenient. All right, what else we got? What else we got? Karan Sharma, please share me some height increase tips. Growth hormone. Hang from a pull-up bar. Work for Bugs Bunny. And work for Michael Jordan. Maybe it'll work for you. Untitled _ 2020. Is 8 sets for side lifts in one session too much? It depends. Are you able to recover from it? Are you able to put forth the appropriate effort after sets 4 and 5 to still hit your rep ranges and get close to failure? If yes, then yeah, it's good. I routinely do 8 sets of lateral delts in a session, sometimes more. I find lateral delts for most people just don't really get very sore. And the stopping point is usually mental. It's usually like, I'm just over it. I don't want to do it anymore. And then the pump seems to go away. But it's not too much if you can recover from it. And many people can. But don't just throw 8 sets in a lateral delt session just off rip, right? Like work up to that. Okay. What else we got? So many people coming in and out. Okay. Hello, Shimi-san. Hi. I'm consuming 500 grams of chicky at 1 a.m. right now. That's nice. Sour ABH _ 7987. What's your take on BCAA, EAA, glutamine? Waste of time, waste of money. Don't do it. You don't got to do it. And if you're curious, what supplements do I think actually matter? Whey protein, casein protein, great. Creatine, great. Caffeine, great. Silence for a reason. And then there's the on-spec stuff, if you will. Beta-alanine, I like that. I like that cracked out paresthesis feeling. Citrulline, the jury's kind of out on it. People say ashwagandha's cool. I haven't tried it, so I don't know. Multivitamin, if your bloods dictate that you need it. Carb powder, that's it. Okay, what else we got? Excuse me. Steiner Fitness. After about 6 months of training to true failure and learning what real failure is like, now I properly gauge. Dude, that's so important. It's so good that you said that. That is so important. So many people be like, man, my training was not really that hard, or like I'm going 3 RIR. I'm like, dude, how do you know? Like, you can't program properly until you actually do really go to that place. Like, you could theoretically do it, and it's not bad. You're still going to get probably most, if not all, the gains you're already going to get. But if you really, really, really want to program to the teeth, then you kind of got to know with certain movements or most movements, what is failure? What is my limit? And go there and then program off of that. Anthony, what's up, bro? Just chill again. Integrated partials versus long length partials. Oh, you know, I'm the man, Mr. Fancy Pants, huh? You want to talk about mother? I don't need to choose, and neither do you. I don't think one's better than the other. I think they're both great. For those of you that are tuning in that may not know what those things mean, integrated partials are where you do either end range or top range, but mostly end range. End range partials within your full range of motion set. So what that means is you might do a full range of motion bench press, then come all the way down, then press halfway up, then come back down. That's an integrated partial. Some people colloquially also refer to it as a 1.5 rep. That's what I like to call them. I'm a big fan of those on certain leg movements like hack squats and leg presses. Oh my God, those are good. If you guys have never done that, you gotta. Whoa, that's a great movement or great strategy to use. Long length partials are just regular partials, preferably in the end range. So this is where you could be doing a dumbbell curl, and instead of curling all the way up, all the way down, you only curl halfway up to where your elbow is perpendicular to the floor, right angle to the floor, and then come back down. They're both great. They're both worth trying, and I think that they're appropriate variations that you can keep in your training toolbox. Who else we got? Huh. Well, that's it. That seems to be everything. If anyone here has any other questions, speak now or forever hold your peace. I'm going to crack open my Crush Zero. Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. Steiner Fitness. How big are your arms, brah? 18 inches? Not a question. They're 18 inches. That's how big they are. Just chill. Can't get full ROM on my leg press. Should I try to get to full ROM first or increase load? Good question. Full range of motion is, God bless America. Full range of motion is contextual for a lot of people, right? So what full range of motion for me is may not be full range of motion for Joe, Jane, and Jack, right? So if you can get as low as you can, pain-free, and I would say it's below 90 degrees, then I would say you can probably start increasing load from there, but never forget that you are still trying to improve your range of motion over time, right? So for me, I didn't always have the depth of most of my exercises that you see, but I was always mindful to continue working on that. I always wanted to expand my range of motion. So once I was comfortable in whatever range of motion I would be doing, I would usually then slowly, gradually try to extend that range of motion further over time. And then, of course, over a period of months and now years, you see me do some range of motion that a lot of you think is like, oh my God, right? Where I can really control those end ranges. It didn't happen overnight. So you don't want to be that person that totally skews to one line of range of motion and be like, well, if I can't get deep like a pretzel, then I'm never going to put any weight on the bar. And I actually do see this. I do see this now, which is interesting. I never saw this a few years ago. But at the same time, of course, you don't want to just load ranges of motion that are small, right? Where you can't put the muscle in significant stretch. So if you can generate a decent enough range of motion in the end range where you can still produce ample force, have no discomfort, then I would load that. But I would never forget that we're still trying to expand that range of motion over time. And again, neural learning is real. So the more time that you spend in a deeper range, the more comfortable your body will be. You'll be able to produce force from there, and you'll be able to expand that further. So of course, I haven't seen your leg press range of motion. I don't know. But if it is what I said, then yeah, load it. And if you do want me to help you with your training, then DM me, because I got coaching for that. 18-inch arms, what our founding fathers were fought for, among other things. Probably, I don't know if that was very high on the list. Probably wasn't. Sid V. How listening to this while working. Very good. Very good. Very nice. I like is good. You cannot afford great success. Anyone have other questions? We'll take one more pull from my Zero Sugar Crush, and then I'm going to get out of here. And I'm going to enjoy the rest of my Friday, as you guys should. So any more questions? My people here on the live here. My people here on the live here. And if you're curious, I am not going to be saving this Instagram video, but I will be saving this YouTube video. So if you want to watch this back, or if you asked the question and you didn't get a chance to be here, it's on the YouTube, The Shim Show. So be there. Just Show 103 went through a bad phase and hence put on some fat. What do you suggest? Cut first or bulk first? I would say go through what I will call an acclimation phase to the whole shit. So eat at maintenance of your current body weight, get a decent step count going, train hard in the gym for a month or two, and let recomposition happen, and then make the case. If you're decently fat, then go diet. If you're not decently fat, then go mass. But I think a lot of people, when they fall off the wagon, they have a tendency to want to swing the pendulum one way or the other. Like, I need to diet or I need to mass. Not really. You can probably recomp a little bit, and that's important. So start at your minimum effective volumes, be ginger with how much you add sets week over week, eat at maintenance of your current body weight, don't miss your freaking macros, do your steps, train decently hard, and watch what happens. Stayed for the entire live session. Very informative. Cheers. Shashank, you know what it is. Chief, we love your content. By the way, if you ever come to NYC, we're getting a session 100%. Well, guess what? Coming to New York in 2 weeks. So DM me. Not a joke. Julio Resurf, what do you think about your methods for general strength, not powerlifting, just for living? I think my methods, as in decent range of motion, controlled eccentrics, end range pauses, moderate rep ranges, I think that they are fantastic for general strength. And then if you wanted to bias a specific strength for a certain thing, whether it be, I don't know, squats for 5, weighted pull-ups or whatever, then you would just go into those sort of lower rep ranges. But I think it's great. Yes. All right, my people, I had a wonderful time hanging out with you guys. I hope that I provided some help, some laughs, some good feels. That's what I try to do all the time. And I'll catch you on the next one, because I will absolutely do this again. All love. See you later, alligators. Bye.